Are you on video, Jim? I don't see your video.
Jim has his video. Yep.
Oh, there it is. Okay, there we are. Just waiting for the okay from Public Access TV that we're live. And we're on. So at 7:02 this evening, I will open tonight's meeting of the Tuesday, September 15th, 2020 Select Board meeting. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, there's some echo here, so who is echoing? Anybody else hear an echo?
I heard it.
All right. Well, let's wait for Michael Ray now. Let's get him unmuted. Michael, you there?
I am here.
All right. All right, I'm muted. I got to find out who this is. Just got to do a test to see. Is the echo there? I didn't hear it echo that time. So Jim, it's something on your mic is echoing there. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law. No, it isn't. It's still going on. Is anybody using a phone?
What are you hearing, Tom?
An echo. Everything I'm saying is echoing back to me.
I'm not getting an echo. I'm not sure about everybody else. Like, I'm not hearing you twice.
I hear you.
Hear it.
All right. We'll do this. Let's mute everyone. And I'll open, and then I'll unmute everybody again. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent its spread. All town facilities are open during limited hours for appointment only after limited hours. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 20, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. This meeting will be broadcast live through local access cable, on Facebook Live, on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. For anybody who would want to participate in this meeting remotely and you have a smartphone, a tablet, or a computer, you can download the Zoom app, and the Zoom webinar ID for this meeting is 909-174-0347. If you do not have a smart device but still wish to participate via phone, you can dial in at 888-475-4499. And again, the webinar ID is 909-174-0347. Anybody who wishes to speak should familiarize themselves with the raise your hand function if you are on a smart device. If you are on a phone, you raise your hand by pressing *9. I will call on people who raise their hand as the time becomes appropriate. Okay, so we'll open the call with a roll call vote as I unmute the board. Mr. Dwyer, are you there?
I am.
Mr. Jeffries, are you there?
I am.
Ms. Adams, Adams, are you there?
Here.
Mr. Marino, are you there?
Yes, I am.
And I am present. And Madam Town Manager, when it unmutes here, are you
I'm here.
present?
Yes.
Okay. Meeting is now come to order. I will turn it over to our Pledge of Allegiance leader extraordinaire, Ms. Adams.
Okay, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That flag reminds me of the moon flag because it has no wave. It's kind of very
It
interesting.
actually does wave. It has a button, Tom.
Oh, well,
I just don't press
oh,
it.
without it waving, it looks like the moon flag. Any public comment tonight from the board?
I have a small one. I have made it in the past leading up to it, but tomorrow is the first day of school in Lunenburg. It's a full remote day for everybody. So school buses and everything won't start up till Thursday. As it is, it's always a change when people start back in the fall anyways to be aware of, but this year there's even more confusion. People aren't even sure their bus routes and everything. So everybody just be careful, patient, and good luck, everybody. Trying to start something that a lot of people don't know how it's going to work. So good luck to teachers and students and parents and to me. That's all.
Yes, it'll definitely be trying. So, okay. So any other comment from the board? Public comment from the public, Mr. McDonald. And friend.
Can you guys hear us?
We can.
All right, good evening. My name is Dave McDonald at Island Road.
My name's Michael Nault at 56 Brookview Terrace. We came up with a fundraiser idea. We're here to kind of start promoting it. It's going to be for the first responders in town for equipment or whatever they choose to use the funds for. And we're going to call it Lobsters for Lunenburg. And I'm going to let Dave take it from here because this is where he specializes.
Good evening, guys. What we're going to do is we're going to be doing a lobster meal, grab and go due to COVID-19. It's going to be held at the TCP where you can drive in, pick up your meal and drive out. As Mike said, all proceeds are going to go back to our finest, the first responders in the town of Lunenburg. We feel it's time to give some more recognition to a police force that's done a great job in the town of Lunenburg. So with your help, and again, I got to thank Heather because this last couple of days, I think Heather and I have been working a lot to secure some of the plans and situations that we have to cover. And the other one is we're going to have a raffle as well. And the raffle is going to be $500 worth of landscaping donated by Mr. Powell and Lakeview Nursery. And I got to thank them again for coming up, stepping up to the plate. So those raffle tickets are going to be $5 a piece, 5 for $20. So more information is going to be coming out. We're just in the process of planning this. The date targeted right now is October 10th or the 17th, depending on, we're finding it's very hard to get materials and supplies we need. And again, I want to thank everybody on the board, including Mr. Marino, who I think we're going to be sitting down talking with. And Jim, your help would be greatly appreciated. And last, I just want to echo Ms. Adams' concerns or her mention about the schools. I really hope the schools go well tomorrow. I'm so proud that these kids are going to be able to see each other and the teachers. So again, that's another story. But again, our hearts go out to all the children and the teachers tomorrow. So we wish them the best of luck as well. And we are on the agenda, Ms. Lemieux, for next meeting, I think, for an official meeting.
Yes. Once that agenda is finalized with the chair. Yes.
Okay. So again, we know it's public comment. We just want to thank you for your time and looking forward to working with you and hope you guys like lobster.
And one more quick thing, we are looking for any other sponsors that want to get involved. Would appreciate it.
Yeah, very good.
use all the
point.
help we can get.
Yeah, so if you guys have some people who want to sponsor our event, please give them a call and have them contact us. We're very easily be reachable. So again, thank you guys very much and have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, and we'll see you next week on our agenda item, I guess. But thank you for introducing
We'll
it.
be here.
We're going to be back every week, just like you used to do. We'll be back every week.
Well, thanks for letting me know so I can prepare.
Thank you, guys, and go Patriots too.
All right. Cicera Newcomb. You're
Good
on.
evening.
Good evening.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for your time and allowing us to speak. My name is Sarah Newcomb, and this is Joel Normandin. We are the potential buyers of 250 Howard Street. We just want to give a few brief comments about the property and what we're our love of Lunenburg, I guess. We've had a purchase and sale on this property since December. We're fully committed to, this property. We are excited for the opportunity to be able to build a house there. I have been a resident of Lunenburg almost my entire life. Went all through the Lunenburg school systems. When I had my son, I moved back to town because I wanted him to grow up in the community that I grew up in, and go through all the schools here. My parents still live in town. My mother spent her entire career in town. She was a kindergarten teacher for 20 years and then moved into the assistant principal and principal of the elementary and primary schools. Now my son is going into his freshman year at the high school. And we're just looking to build our dream home so that we can stay in town. Because we just love this community and all that it has to offer.
Hi, and good evening. My name is Joel Normandin. Thank you for allowing us to speak this evening. We appreciate it greatly. It has come to our attention that there are a couple different committees in town that have shown interest and are going to be speaking, I believe, later or next regarding 250 Howard Street. Those include the Open Space Committee and the Conservation Commission. My understanding is that they are both interested in acquiring the land, for which we would like to offer potentially to the town an alternate solution for which we could buy the land and either first offer the town a right of way across the back northern boundary of the property so that they could have the access they're looking for. Second would be we would buy the land and then that same swath, if the town physically wanted to own part of it, we would be open to that as well. That's really, in a nutshell, all that we had to offer to the town, and we figured that that might be a good solution and an alternate to them buying the entire property, whereas we could build what we're looking to build on the property still just the same. And really that's all we have to say this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll obviously take that in consideration when that item comes up. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no announcements. Madam Town Manager, do you have any announcements? Oh, okay. Madam Town Manager is muted.
I do not.
You do not. Okay. Okay, so speaking about 250 Howard Street, that is our first appointment of this evening. Notice of our first right of refusal for Chapter 61B property located at 250 Howard Street. I will hand it to you, Madam Town Manager, to introduce. I see we have the Chair of the Open Space Committee with us this evening.
We do. So the last time the board discussed this last week, the board asked if the Conservation Commission Chairman and the Open Space Committee Chairman could come to explain their reasoning for wishing to proceed with purchasing or exercising the first right of refusal. So both chairs were invited. Mr. Kibbe has a presentation that if we can share the screen, I can display that. Mr. Pease, the chairman of the Conservation Commission, unfortunately could not make it tonight.
All right, so I will make you the host, Madam Town Manager, for this presentation, as my video has a tendency to freeze, and I don't want to freeze Mr. Kibbe's presentation.
Okay.
While she's getting that up, Mr. Kibbe, you can certainly begin.
Terrific. Thank you all for having me this evening. And I can tell you that I did review this presentation with Bob Pease, chairman of the the Conservation Commission. So he did review it and was supportive of the presentation materials here tonight. And I did want to extend my hello to Ms. Newcomb and Mr. Normandin, and let them know that we do actually have, the Open Space Committee has a meeting scheduled for next Tuesday evening, the 22nd, I guess it is, at 6 p.m. and would love to discuss some of the options that you talked about further. So if you have a chance to make that meeting, you can either reach out to me, which is geez, I don't even remember my Lunenburg Online email address off the top of my head. bkibbe at Lunenburg. Yeah, so you reach out to town manager and we can get you on the agenda if you can make that. Would love to talk with you further about it. So tonight I wanted to tell you the rationale behind sort of why we think the town should give strong consideration to this opportunity and explore opportunities like the one Ms. Newcomb and Mr. Normandin have mentioned this evening. So with that, if we can go to the next slide, Heather. I wanted to quickly just give you, and I'll try to be very brief here, just a quick overview of the open space plan and priorities that were identified, talk about how this property meets the objectives of the land acquisition criteria that we put down, and then also just talk generally about the opportunity and sort of the sort of regional interest that we have in the parcel. First of all, we've talked about this in the past, but the open space plan was updated in 2019, actually fully approved by the state in 2020. So this is all recent information. And the plan itself was informed greatly by a lot of input from both local boards and commissions, but also strong support from and input from local residents. We sent out a survey to all residents, all taxpayers in town, went with tax bills. Also was available online, available at the library and a number of other places. We received about a 9% response rate on the survey, which is a pretty healthy response rate. And a number of the results that came back identified some clear priorities. People really like the rural atmosphere in town. People are highly active in using the conservation lands and the trails that we have in town. And they want more recreational opportunities for adults and seniors, and will also vote to support town acquisitions for such places. Next slide. So I'm going to go through a quick series of maps here. The larger town-wide maps are specifically from the open space plan update. And just to give everybody an overview, there's the picture on the right-hand side of this slide is a zoom-in locus that shows a couple of the other opportunities in context. Number one, I'll note the Saliba acquisition that was completed earlier this year. That was the 259 acres of conservation land north of Northfield Road and also with frontage on Howard Street. And then the southerly parcel south of Northfield Road, about 59 acres, which is Parks property as part of that. You'll remember we had town meeting vote on that property back last special town meeting in November of 2019, and the acquisition passed with strong support from the town. We also applied for and received $500,000 in grant monies from the state to support that acquisition, which further offset what was an already good bargain for the town. And we invested about a total of $270,000 of the town's own dollars into that acquisition. 250 Howard Street is highlighted there in red, and you'll note that it shares substantial boundary, particularly on its westerly side, with a portion of conservation land and a corner of additional conservation land to the north, which is a sizable chunk of conservation land. The blue piece there you'll see north of 250 Howard Street is in tax title. It's in about $6,000 in arrears, and it's a little under 6 acres in size. And then I believe Adam Burney has described to you a potential donation that has been discussed in the context of the development of the former Arrow Farm. That is an interesting proposal, but still remains a proposal nonetheless. So that acquisition and the potential access that that may provide to the Northwest Conservation Land is still a proposal only. I will point you down to this very southerly section there. I know there's been some discussion recently about the Bright Farms proposal. We've been discussing recently with the Bright Farms developer, very similar proposal to what Ms. Newcomb and Mr. Normandin were talking about, is connecting through that parcel the Reno Conservation Land and the Northfield Park parcel, so that we have trail connections that will be able to be made from the existing trails on the Reno property into the existing trails on the Northfield Park property to the existing trails on the Table Rock Conservation Area property, and hopefully into the trail network that would connect into Northwest Town Forest. Next slide, please. This is just a reminder of the open space acquisition criteria that were established for consideration of opportunities that come before the town. Yeah, our 2011 update to the open space and recreation plan identified 2 primary areas of priority in the town, and in acquisitions that fall within those priority areas, we suggested meet at least 3 of the 6 listed criteria here. Greater than is the parcel itself greater than 50 acres in size? Does it contain important habitat resources? Does it process and/or recreation? Is it important for scenic vistas or maintaining rural character? Contiguous to other protected open space or recreation resources? And does it support agricultural viability? When the Open Space and Recreation or the Open Space Committee looked at these criteria, we did determine that it was in a priority area for conservation, and that it met 3 of these criteria. In particular, the habitat resources, the importance for public access and recreation, and the contiguity with other protected open spaces. And so the next couple of slides will run through and just show you why we made that assessment. So next slide. There it is. First, I'll start with the map actually on the right, which is the significant wildlife habitats. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner of that map, there is a concentration of important wildlife habitats. And these are significant wildlife habitats as identified as statewide priorities. These aren't something that we drew. These are something that statewide experts drew. You'll see the darker green blob, for lack of a better term, is biomap core habitats. The lighter green blob, for lack of a better description, is critical supporting natural landscapes. And then that pink cross-hatched area is an area of critical environmental concern. So this is a very highly valuable wildlife habitat area. And then in terms of unique and scenic resources that were identified in the open space plan, the map on the left, you can see we highlighted this area as a large block of contiguous conservation land. Next slide. Again, going to the map on the right, this is the map that identifies the priority areas for acquisition and the specific action items. So, can you go back? There we are. Thank you. And so you can see again in the upper left-hand corner of that map the area in question. And I included the MRPC trail inventory for Lunenburg principally to point you to the adjoining towns of Ashby and Townsend, where Pearl Hill Brook, I think it is, state forest area, has a significant amount of trails that are in the adjoining towns. And you'll also notice that our large block of conservation land there is isolated in that northern section of town, northwestern section of town. Next slide. So this is an excerpts of the goals and objectives that were outlined in the open space and recreation plan. First, I noted these as really the principal, but there are other objectives that were noted in the open space plan that I think you could easily fit this into. It checks a lot of boxes, I guess is another way to say it. First, is the goal to enhance and promote existing open space and recreation assets. And I want to read this one out loud because I think it's important for the community to understand that the principal goals that were identified in the open space and recreation plan was try to maximize the value and use of our existing resources. So we aim to maximize the utility, access to, and awareness of Lunenburg's wealth of existing open space and recreation areas and facilities, and to make improvements or additions to where it is necessary, efficient, and cost effective. And those, I think, really kind of underscore the overarching message in how we want to implement and achieve our open space and recreation objectives. I highlighted in objective 2B, acquire or protect via permanent restriction additional priority properties. I highlighted the portions of that objective which I think this opportunity particularly meets. Objective 3A, link conservation and recreation resources. Here is that support regional trail initiatives that connect Lunenburg's conservation and recreation resources beyond town lines. And then interestingly, and I think most importantly, this area in particular, Northwest Town Forest, was identified as its own specific objective. We have long wanted to gain access. We don't have really any reasonable, meaningful access to the Northwest Town Forest. That's why we're working through the Arrow development process and working to try to gain some access there. That's why this opportunity in itself is also important. And it's access not just for a trail, it's access for management of the property as well. If the town ever wanted to conduct any forest management on the property, for instance, without meaningful access where we could get the equipment in to do those operations, we wouldn't be able to manage that property. And that's how it's been for a very long time. And we'd like to address that. Next slide, please. Lastly, I included on the left-hand side, slide 10 from the town meeting vote that we took regarding the Saliba property. And you might remember that regional connectivity connectivity across the Saliba property was one of the things that we highlighted as one of the main objectives of doing that. That was sort of the cornerstone piece there. But the reality is that we have a grand view. That's why we're working with Bright Farms in the south part of this property. That's why this parcel in particular is of interest. It fits into this grand scheme of regional connectivity to provide people with not just a single place to go for a walk, but a way to connect, sort of like a green necklace into what is a very large block of conservation land as well to the north and west, our adjoining towns. And I would say that, the town did make significant investment, both in effort and in capital, to protect those key resources very recently. So to summarize, the 250 Howard Street parcel fulfills a lot of the goals that we've identified in the open space and recreation plan, and a lot of the things that were specifically identified by the residents of town as important to them. It meets our established and robust, I think, criteria for consideration of acquisition and enhance our investments that we've made in conservation resources. That I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Chairman, hold on 1 second.
Thank you, Tom. You're muted as well, Tom.
That's because of my coughing fit. Thank you.
Okay. Mine was because of microwave popcorn. So I have a question. I have other comments, but they can be for after, because I will just pose the question. I brought this up at our last meeting, and when I really look at it, I can't see the connectivity. There's already a town-owned parcel that abuts the, I'll call it the blue square or the tax title square. With this 250 parcel, it gets connectivity through the same piece that we don't have. So if we don't have the piece of the puzzle we need to have this make sense, if we got that piece, the blue square, we do have access through a strip that we already have. Is that correct?
I would say it's partially correct, because it's only really partial access. It would only be really partial access. And the reason is because it's very narrow, very long, and has terrain. And so if you wanted to find a footpath up that very narrow parcel, I would hasten to say that we'd be able to do that. But if we wanted to provide other management access into that area, we might not.
You know what the width is of that piece, the green piece that town has?
I think it's only about 50 feet.
We're getting possible input because I feel like that to me is important, that if that is access, I guess I really want to better understand the width of that and the meaning of the piece we already have.
Yeah. Yeah, my feeling is that if we wanted to have meaningful access for management as well, not just for passive recreational access, that we would want additional space. I can say in my own professional life, I manage about 30,000 acres of property for the company I work for. And, in order to get equipment into.
So you mean like maybe forestry and things like that?
Yep. But
so maybe some people don't want to widen it.
well, it may be that. So I guess my bottom line point is that we have limited number of opportunities to expand our access to that property. It's developed most of the way around. And so, for us to be able to obtain good, meaningful access, we don't have many opportunities to do that. And in order for us to take advantage of the opportunities that we have, I think it's important for us to weigh those benefits against the costs. And it, I agree, this doesn't provide perfect access in and of itself. There's going to have to be other pieces that come together in order to do that. And we're working on putting some of those pieces together. Whether it's acquiring through the tax title process that parcel that's in tax title status, whether it's negotiating a purchase with that owner, if we can. That's also tied up in an estate, so that's a longer conversation.
Okay, so I just wanted to go back to my question in terms of meaningful access, because in my own mind, when we've talked about this and when we talk about that trail of connectivity, which sounds very promising, I'm just imagining passive recreation. And I feel there's this missing link that just came up. Meaningful access now means something entirely different. I thought the whole conversation in open space and everything was looking for meaningful access to the conservation land for the citizens, for walks and everything. Now, when we need a wider trail, meaningful access, meaning equipment and things. And I understand, managing a forest. And I know we went through Rob's Hill where some people wanted to do some harvesting and then the neighborhood didn't want it to happen. Everybody feels differently about their conservation land. And if anybody was on the board during Rob's Hill, they understand that the neighborhood was really upset about the logging that may take place. I know that small town forest on Mulpus Road, we heard, or actually a woman who did horseback riding came to a meeting and was crying about what happened after the harvesting of the land. This is something where if this is town-owned property, I don't necessarily think the citizens want to see, logging and things done on the land. So if we're trying to spend money to gain access for forestry, I think we really got to be very clear that that's part of what this path would accomplish, because I just feel like that took me by surprise. And I don't know if anybody else feels the same way.
Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, so I'd just like to get some clarification tonight on what our objective is in this conversation. So it sounds as if the new, I may say this wrong, the new Combs are looking, it sounds as if Mr. Keeby, if I'm saying that correct, is open to having a conversation with the new Combs to discuss next steps. So if you can just clarify for me, Mr. Chair, I do have some questions, but if you can just clarify for me what goal we're trying to reach tonight on this discussion.
We wanted to hear from the Open Space Committee and the Conservation Committee why they felt that this was a property worth the town pursuing purchase of.
Okay.
That is what it is. So whether we wanted to exercise our right of first refusal or not, and why.
All right.
That is the purpose of tonight.
So it's, based on the information that I reviewed prior to this, with rights of first refusal, I think on a certain level, it's blind to the interest is blind to the people interested in purchasing. And that's the nature of a first refusal, is that it's understood that the town in this instance can look at its own interest in the property, blind to what the new Combs hope to do or any other future buyer would hope to do. I think it's, to me, crystal clear that the Conservation Commission supports this, Open Space Committee supports this. This is 15.33 acres of land that is for roughly $50,000. I think that that's also a no-brainer, as it seems to very clearly meet the needs of the community. But I think given the new Combs investment in our community, it seems as if the responsible thing to do is to identify what potential legal deals can be worked out, and more discussion with Mr. Keeby and the Open Space Committee at their upcoming meeting, that there may be a way for all of our interests to be met. And so I would just encourage that I'm in favor of the land purchase, of the town purchasing the land. I'm in favor of the town exercising, of the town not refusing to purchase the property. But I also understand that the new Combs seem to be reasonable in saying, that their interests, that they think that there's some compromise to be had here. So I would encourage that discussion, so that way we can have a more informed decision on if that compromise, if that solution is still going to meet the needs of the town as per the Conservation Commission and the Open Space Committee.
Any other questions from the board? Miss Adams?
Sure. I just want to repeat the things that I had said when we talked about this last week. One thing is, and I'm really supportive of land conservation and everything, and have worked on, private, things for land preservation and whatnot. So I understand the mission of open space and generally are fairly supportive, but we just did the Saliba property very recently. Right now with uncertain economic times and a lot going on, regardless of the parcel and the circumstances, even if it actually did create connectivity, I don't know if it's a good time to spend money on more conservation land when we don't know the rough times that may be ahead for school department, public safety, and things like that. But more importantly, when we talk about the goals of open space and creating connectivity, without a parcel that we do not have, this does not accomplish that. It does not abut the parcel. And there's a strip of land that does. And so all those things being considered, I really don't support the town spending money on this piece of land. I think the money is going to be needed for the town. And I think we've been very lucky as a town with the lane and the Saliba to be adding all these amazing parcels, but there's a lot of other needs in town and a lot of other things that need our resources.
Mr. Marino?
Mr. Kibbe makes a very strong argument for the purchase of this land. However, I'm just trying to understand 61B. I was just reading it. And I have a question about that, if somebody can answer that. I don't want to trample on the people who are interested in buying the property. I don't want to trample on any of their rights. But as I read it, it seems to me that the owner of the land files an intent to sell it or change the status of it, 1B, so that they can sell it as property that somebody can build a residence on. But I don't know, to me, it seems like the cart's coming before the horse. Are they supposed to just notify the town that they want to change it to a 61 or take it out of 61B, and then the town has a right to exercise, can it then exercise their right to first refusal? Because it seems to me if you're gonna take it out of 61B and then take it out of 61B, but first find a buyer for it and then give the town the right of first refusal. It's almost like, I don't know, I just feel like it just doesn't seem right. This whole thing doesn't seem right to me. It's not, has nothing to do with the purchase by open space. It's just seems like somebody here is not getting what they intended to get. In other words, the buyers, seems to me that the buyers go into this thing thinking they're going to buy the land and there's not going to be a problem. Then all of a sudden the town's saying, no, we want first refusal. So sorry, you'll have to wait 120 days or whatever. Am I making myself clear here? My question clear?
Madam Town Manager or Mr. Kibbe, whoever would like to.
Mr. Kibbe, do you want to handle it?
Sure. So there's two different ways folks or the ways that the town can have sort of trigger their right of first refusal. One is that the owner can decide they're going to change the use and then notify the town that they're going to change the use, and then that triggers an appraisal process and a whole different sort of process. But then there's the other way, which is the way that most commonly happens, which is the owner who is enrolled in Chapter 61 executes a bona fide purchase and sale agreement with an incoming buyer and then presents that as their notice of withdrawal, and the town's right of first refusal kicks in. So that's the way it typically happens, and that's certainly the way it's happened in this case. And just a point of clarification, that this property is enrolled in Chapter 61 Forestry, not Chapter 61B Open Space. I would also say that, the town gets a right of first refusal at a cost, and the cost is to the town. So we get that right of first refusal because the property owner who enrolls in Chapter 61 gets a statutory reduction in their property taxes. So they get a significant, and Chapter 61 is a significant property tax reduction. It's about 95% of the total assessment gets carved off. So you only get taxed on 5% of the value for that property. So that property's been enrolled for 9 years, and the town has been receiving a 95% reduction in its revenues for that property. We earned that right of first refusal. So we earned an opportunity here to think critically about this opportunity, weigh it, and consider it. So I wholeheartedly believe that we should be deliberate in how we look at this and consider all of the options before we make a decision, one way or the other.
Well, there's a tax roll-off, though. They have to pay money back to the town before they can take it out. And incidentally, it says, according to the law office, the letter says that, as you may know, or I won't go into that, but it says, as you know, this property is currently within the Chapter 61B classification. And my question is, are the buyers, I mean, they must be fully aware that this can happen, I would think, right?
Yeah,
One would-
it would
one
be
would
one of
assume-
the disclosures that the seller would have to make to them.
Right.
Certain. And there's a lien that's recorded when the enrollment happens with the Registry of Deeds. So it is publicly noticed as well.
So would the buyers have to pay tax roll-off? In other words, they'd have to pay a fee, right, back to the town? Because
The
it's-
seller is actually responsible for paying that rollback tax. And we've talked with the collector's office. The rollback tax is estimated at about $14,000. And then there's an additional conveyance tax because it's being sold before the 10th year of enrollment. Which will be another $500 that would get paid back to the town. And the taxes that were foregone over that 9-year period was about $14,000. So even if we don't exercise and we collect the rollback taxes, this would have cost the town $5,000. So we have foregone $19,000 in taxes at this point for this opportunity to consider it.
Okay, but I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but this, I need to clarify this before we move forward, if you don't mind. The question is too, so the owner owes the town $14,000 is what you're saying right now, before they can sell this land. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And the other question I had is, you said that it wasn't in 61B. Is that just some mistake on the part of the lawyer's office?
Yeah, according to the collector, it's enrolled in Chapter 61.
Okay, thank you, Brandon.
Okay, Madam Town Manager, do you have a clarification?
Yes, so it's included, and just to answer Selectman Marino's question about whether the buyers were aware of the status of 61, it's in the purchase and sale agreement on, these aren't page numbered, but it's number 20 under additional provisions that the seller obtains the release of Chapter 61 designation and paying rollback taxes owed.
Yeah, I want to also, only because of the manner in which the question was asked, the previous question was asked, there's absolutely nothing underhanded going here. The person who's selling it knew when they entered in chapter, because I have property in Chapter 61 myself. You're fully aware of what the penalties are if you take it out before the 10 years and all the other options. And if you go to sell it, the procedure has been the same procedure for years and years that I can remember. It has not been changed. So there's nothing underhanded going on here. This is a straight procedure that all towns and cities go through, and they have the ability to do when things come out of chapter. So
I wasn't inferring that there was anything underhanded. I was merely asking questions about an issue I don't really know that much about. And my question was, were they fully aware that the town could just jump in and exercise a right of first refusal? And you answered the question. It wasn't I definitely didn't infer that something.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say it was intentional, Mr. Marino. I'm saying that for people watching, it may have sounded like people may be caught without being unawares. And I'm just indicating to people that this has been the process for, probably at least 15 years that I know of, and it's probably longer than that. That's all I wasn't saying that you purposely wanted to do that, but for people listening, it may have sounded like that. I just wanted to clarify. That's all.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to voice my support for the town's position that I wish that we exercise our right to move forward with the purchase of the property, or as Mr. Jeffries alluded to, which I think would be more amenable, is if we can create a meaningful access through some negotiation on a portion of the parcel. And I encourage Ms. Newcomb and Mr. Normandin to work with the Open Space Committee to see if they can come to some equitable solution that would benefit all parties.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. For myself, I would say that one of the things I would say is that as a scuba diver, there's a motto that says you plan your dive and you dive your plan. Well, if we're going to have open space plans and we're going to go through the effort of putting together what the criteria are for supporting things, and then opportunities come up in those areas, it would be kind of counterproductive to not follow our own plan. And as Mr. Kibbe pointed out in those diagrams, although we don't have all the pieces in place, not everything falls into place at the same time. But land, once it's developed, you don't get a shot at, again, an undeveloped piece. So you have to take them as they come, and they certainly fit the criteria. So number one, I'm in support of that for that reason. Number two, I am certainly not against any negotiations with Ms. Newcomb or Mr. Normandin to see if anything can be mutually beneficially arranged. As a side note, that's fine. As far as me, I've said this many times in the past, as far as me as a Board of Selectmen member determining for the entire town whether they can afford it or whether this is the time to spend money, I would say it's my objective to give those decisions to the town and have the appropriate committees and commissions review with their policies and their plans to see if we should approach the town for that. Certainly seems like that hurdle has been met. And so I am certainly for bringing it to the town and seeing if the townspeople will decide that they want at this particular time to afford it or not afford it. Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, do we have a timeline to exercise, or I know we do, so where are we at in that timeline?
120 days from the moment we get a bona fide offer. So the application. And when is that, Madam Town Manager? Do you know? Oh, hold on. I swear people put themselves on mute just to test me.
So we received it on August 12th. We're just over the 30 days window. So we have a significant amount of time left.
So that should provide then the Newcombs opportunity to meet with Mr. Kibbe without running the risk of us having to make a decision soon. So that seems like a fair path forward.
The only other thing we'd want to keep in mind is if we were to exercise this right and pay the $50,000 or arrange another alternative solution, we would need the funding, and that would have to fall within the special town meeting date.
Right. So we have to decide before a special town meeting. That it would have to be on that meeting warrant. So.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Marino.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to give some support to what Mr. Dwyer and Mr. Jeffrey said. That's the best case scenario is if Brandon can work with the buyers to try to work something out. Open space is important, but we having residents to use it is also important. And, I'd like to support their dreams. So I believe that's the best case scenario. I just wanted to show support for that.
Thank you. Ms. Adams? Oh, hold on.
Okay. I think there's definitely a unique opportunity if you're able to negotiate with potential buyers and not have to spend town money. On the other hand, if we don't exercise it, it sounds like we get 14,000. So we are losing the opportunity if we let it go to get that tax money back. So that's just one thing to point out. There is spending money, there's, making money, and then there's sort of keeping it together. But what I feel like is getting lost here, and I can't myself quite get over it, even if we negotiated improved access with the strip we have, with some sort of easement over the strip that the new buyers may own, it still all abuts a blue square that doesn't belong to the town. And so I don't know if conservation or open space talked about, if the town's spending $50,000 or the town's spending money, has anybody approached the owners of the blue square, which is the piece we actually need?
We have begun the process of identifying the owners, and as I mentioned in my comments, the property is actually in a complicated and adversarial estate probate issue right now. So with the folks, the heirs of that property being engaged in that, then there's really not much hope at this moment to make much headway there. And I would further underscore what the chairman mentioned earlier about pieces falling into place at different times, and the opportunity to protect a parcel. And once it's developed, that opportunity is lost forever. So it doesn't all necessarily come together at once. And if we have a vision here, and I hope that I explained the vision that we do have for this, that well enough that that we should take the opportunities as they arise.
Ms. Adams again.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may, can anybody pull up GIS or anything? The map is gone, and let me know the width of the strip that we own. Because just looking at it visually and having it already passed by in the slide, I'm just trying to conceptualize the width of what we own, what it could potentially accomplish, and the piece that we need to fall into place is the one that you said is in probate. And so if we can talk more about the piece we own and hope for it to connect to the piece we need, then I'm having a little bit of trouble in my mind spending town money on something unless I can more conceptualize and visualize the width of what we have and what it's truly lacking.
I'm trying to simultaneously pull up the notice of that we received, because there was a plan of land included in that
on our
notice.
Google Drive. Yeah.
And something tells me, I'm seeing the hand be raised by one of the gentlemen that's interested in purchasing it. So perhaps they have that information from the engineering they've done.
No, the person.
He raises his hand every time I
Mr.
say.
Newman did with Ms. Newcomb. He raised his hand.
Okay, hold on one second. It's either 175 feet or 171 feet, one of those two. I don't know which one it is because it's not listed as 250 on this property somewhere. I have to cross-reference it. I think the one we have is 171 feet. At the street, at least.
Okay, so to me, that seems like meaningful access. And this is, not something, I like I said, I'm trying to conceptualize that strip of land looked very similar to the size of the 250 Howard Street. And in terms of gaining access, having 170 some odd amount of frontage that the town already owns, it goes all the way up to the blue square. To me, the only piece we really got to work on and save for is the blue square. I just can't get beyond that in my mind because we already have access on the road, 170 plus feet of it. That would be enough for some pull off of cars, for creations of paths and such.
Well,
So I'm just confused, I guess. And not really confused. I'm just saying that because I don't understand why there's so much hopes to purchase this other piece when we essentially already have one.
well, first of all, I think that's not what Mr. Kibbe said. I don't want to put words into his mouth. He used meaningful access as one criteria, but then there's the habit criteria. It's the fact to expand the contiguous ground. So we have the neighboring parcel that's next to it. And it was a targeted area. So there are other criteria. He mentioned one thing, and I know you're focusing on that, but there were other criteria in his presentation as well.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I think the reason I'm primarily focusing on it is, and I think I'm consistent in the sense I felt the same way about the bus company money, is I just have nervousness about what's to come with maybe the economy changing and different things. And so I'm trying to think of town money in a way that I think we've got to be a little bit more cautious now than ever. And that's why I'd really want to know that we're truly gaining something extremely meaningful, not just potentially meaningful.
We can't vote, though, to purchase this property. I mean, we can vote to put this before the town, for the town to make a decision to purchase the property. And I just want to clarify that, I hear everything you're saying, Selectman Adams, but I think that you're making an argument for a town meeting, not really for this board. That I think we're just trying to evaluate if this fits into what the town otherwise is looking for. And based on the information that's been presented, we have a unanimous decision from this Conservation Commission, a unanimous decision from the Open Space Committee, and there are 4 out of 5 of us that are interested in working with the Newcombs on a solution for this, so that way we can better present that to the town. And the Newcombs themselves have expressed an interest in working with us to come with the solution. So I just want to be careful that I just want to comment that I hear what you're saying, but I don't know if today is really the best time to, I don't know if we're going to solve that today.
So Ms. Newcomb and Mr. Normandin, you would like to speak, is that correct? Yes? I will unmute you. Hold on. Go ahead.
You had already pointed out the width going across the road frontage, and that was my only
Okay.
comment. It's the width of the two is predominantly equal.
Right. Okay.
And then it's just, that was all, sorry.
All right. No, that's fine. Thanks. Ms. Adams.
Oh, just to what Selectman Jeffries was just saying, the reason it's here is because we don't have to exercise it. That is something that goes through us. We do have input from conservation and input from open space, but it's here with us tonight because, like we've done in the past, when parcels don't meet criteria of anybody, or when we decide that it's not the right fit, we can right now let everything move forward for people on the other side if we choose to forego our right of first refusal. That could be something we act on tonight. So it is relevant to talk about it. And I see no real advantage to the town. I see a disadvantage to losing money, and I wouldn't even mind seeing the 14,000 come back. So I think it is relevant to talk about, alternatives and things. I just wanted to say that.
All right. I will. It's not really a public thing, but I'm going to let you speak, Mr. Passios.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. It seems like the majority of the Board of Selectmen are very interested in negotiating what sounds like a proposal of access and allowing these people to purchase the land and getting a agreement for access to the property. I'd like to ask this question, and I'm pretty sure I am correct in what I'm about to say. In the negotiations towards the end of the final agreements for the Arrow Estates project, there was access to, I believe it's Northwest Town Forest, negotiated through either Arrow's Estate 9 or 10, and the access road was to be built by the developer. So I'd like to know the status of that, because that is already a negotiated access to that conservation land that, and is supposed to be, and that was agreed to in the court documents.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Kibbe.
just quickly read a comment from Adam Burney, Land Use Director. This is particularly regarding the Arrow Farms. The donation is predicated on the development of the subdivision. Currently, Mr. O'Brien, who is the developer, is exploring alternative development options. So I would infer that the donation is not on the immediate horizon.
I'm not speaking to the donation, though. I'm speaking to a negotiated access that was written into the planning board agreement.
If I may, that same negotiated access would be, would have the same implications as was what Mr. Kibbe just said. If that development that was negotiated in that settlement does not move forward, then those provisions would not move forward.
Yeah, and I was under the understanding that town council covered that, because that question was specifically asked during those negotiations. And that was that, what happens if Arrow's Estate 9 or 10, whichever one it came off of, does not get developed? And I thought there was verbiage written in there that there would be access to Howard Street at the very least. If that's not the case, then that negotiation was not handled properly or written up properly.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure what the implications to this parcel
Right,
is.
I was going to say the same thing. So we're talking about.
If you're going for access to the property, meaningful access, that was meaningful access. That's why they spent so much time negotiating it.
Well, clearly there were other things in there, but anyway, we're talking about 250 directly.
Okay.
Okay, so it seems to me the way this is gone is that Mr. Kibbe, your committee has a meeting next week. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And we have, when is the close of the special town meeting warrant?
September 29th.
Okay, so I don't, I will let that discussion between Ms. Newcomb, Mr. Normandin, and your committee go forward and see what comes of that. But at some point, we have to make the decision as a board which way we're going to go, and if there are, and we at least have to make sure that if this is not decided, if the town or the board decides to put this in front of the town, we have to have a warrant in front of the special town meeting. So therefore, there may be a warrant article for this and may need to be amended if negotiations change or if conditions change. But we don't want to miss the opportunity to do this with a special town meeting warrant article. So I would say that to Ms. Newcomb and Mr. Normandin, please attend and work with Mr. Kibbe and his committee and see what can be done, if anything. But obviously you see from this board that there's an interest in the purchase of the property through the right of first refusal. So just be aware of that there's obviously overwhelming interest in this property. Okay. Any other final comments on this? I think we can move on. Mr. Kibbe, I thank you and your committee for your work. I'm sorry Mr. Pease wasn't here, but on behalf of him to the Conservation Commission too, of which Mr. Dwyer is a part. So thank you for their participation too.
Terrific. Thank you all very much for the spirited conversation, and look forward to working with you all further on it.
Thank you. Okay, I apologize for the delay here, but here we have our appointment, the ratification of town manager appointment to the Americans with Disabilities Act, Ms. Lori Ann Tessier, being put forward with a term to expire on this committee of June 30th, 2023. Ms. Tessier, let me unmute you first. There you go.
Yeah.
So if you would take a moment and introduce yourself a little bit to the board and to the people watching,
Mm-hmm.
and why you're interested in being on the committee.
Okay. My name is Lori Ann Tessier. I've been living in Lunenburg for almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in January. I live at Tri-Town Landing and interested in being on the board. I have been involved with working with other people with disabilities since 1986 in one capacity or another. And I also have a lifelong disability, so I have a vested interest in this committee. And so that's about it, actually.
Thank you. I would open it up to the board if the board has any questions for Ms. Tessier.
I would just say, as I often say when somebody's filling a vacancy, thank you.
I would echo that. It's nice to see a new face coming forward to serve on a town committee. If there are no other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion regarding the ratification of the town manager's appointment of Ms. Tessier to the Americans with Disabilities Committee, term to expire June 30th, 2023.
All right, Mr. Chair, I move to ratify the town manager's appointment of Lori Ann Tessier to the American with Disabilities Committee with a term to expire on June 30th, 2023.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye for me. I apologize for the long delay. I hope you learned a lot about the right of first refusal in chapter 6.
I did, as a matter of fact. I knew nothing about it before now, so.
Good luck, and at your earliest convenience, go to the town clerk to get sworn in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for
Thank you.
I look forward to it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Current business. Well, do we have anybody who is hanging on? No. Okay, there's nobody hanging on who I should get to beforehand. So the review of the composite town manager performance evaluation, as of, I think, 5:30 or 6 o'clock this evening, it was dropped into the Google Drive. It is now a public document. It is the FY20 performance evaluation for the town manager official composite version. So the three selectmen, myself, Ms. Adams, and Mr. Jeffries, wrote their individual evaluations, which they reviewed with the town manager. The town manager submitted her own self-evaluation. This composite is a amalgam of the select board's submissions. There is a numeric component, and there is a textual component for each of the areas. I would ask that each of the selectmen, including Mr. Dwyer and Mr. Marino, read through the composite report, and for Ms. Adams and Mr. Jeffries and myself to make sure, well, obviously, I think it's an amalgam, a fair assessment of everybody's input because I wrote it, but I need your assessment, whether you think it is or not. This will be voted on next week, so read through it. Anybody of the board can see the written and submitted individual selectmen evaluations. The hard copy that's at the selectman's office in town hall, they cannot be emailed, and you cannot take them out, so you can read them there to get a feel for what was said and if this composite reaches a conclusion that includes all of the differing points of view. If
Mr.
you
Chair.
have any questions, excuse me, one more thing. If you have any questions or any things that you wish to change, you can either bring them next Tuesday, but if you want to submit them to me and only to me, so we stay within open meeting law, then submit them to me saying that this should be changed, or that you recommend that this would be changed, so I am prepared so that next week we can finalize the document. That is the plan, at least. Is there any questions about the process here? Okay, so that will be on next week's agenda for approval. So you get this week again to review and submit to me anything that you feel is not properly captured. Number 2, review special town meeting warrant articles. I hand this over to you, Madam Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there in your Google Drive are the articles submitted thus far. All but one are from myself. So they cover the amendments to the fiscal 21 budget, the amendments to the fiscal 21 capital plan, an article to transfer funds into the stabilization fund, an article to transfer funds into special purpose stabilization fund. We had deferred transfer of funds into OPEB, the OPEB trust fund. So there's an article for that. There is an article for the funding the first year of the fire union agreement, and an article to fund the first year of the clerical union agreement, both which we had postponed at the time of COVID, postponed negotiations, which we're recommencing starting tomorrow. And lastly, an article we received today from PAC to fund their capital line in their fiscal 21 budget.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
All of these sound fairly standard. The PAC one was, we actually passed over it on the annual, correct?
It was removed before
Removed.
it made to the warrant because they didn't have sufficient funds as of July 1st to fund that, but they do now.
Okay. Any questions about these draft articles? Okay.
While we're under that, I just wanted to also go over the adjustments right now to the fiscal 21 budget that I'm foreseeing as a part of the proposal. In your Google Drive, there's a document entitled Adjustments to Fiscal 21 Budget for STM, dated today. So on the revenue side, the principal assessor, I told you last week that there will be additional new growth higher than the original estimate that we used at the annual town meeting, which is an additional $76,600. On the expenditure side, there is the estimate for the reduction on the town health insurance side due to a reduction in the July premium, as well as the reduction on the school side for their health insurance for their July premium. There is the cost to fund the second half of the year for an additional police officer, the cost to fund the second half of the year for additional firefighter. The capital plan, that 494,33.3 is actually less than the total that was recommended pre-COVID-19 due to the fact that the piece of equipment that was on the plan for the DPW for trackless sidewalk plower, that is going to be coming out of Chapter 90 funds. So it reduces that by 170,000. The ADA public rights of way, that was deferred at the annual town meeting. Like I said, the OPEB trust fund deposit, that's 10% of our previous year's certified free cash. That's where that 110,000 amount comes from. the school right now, I had a meeting with the superintendent and the business manager about their needs for the remainder of the year. So right now I just plugged in the 118,000 as far as a number, and that was offset by the health number. The state assessments, we were just notified last week about the state assessments and charges, and those are actually $45,931 less than we budgeted for at the annual town meeting because we used fiscal 20 amounts. So that adds to our total of what we would be able to appropriate.
Sounds good. Any questions about that? Hearing none. Okay, so we go on to FY 2021 Board of Selectmen goals. So I thought this was finalized. Maybe we put it down and picked it up for another reason, but if we haven't voted on it, we can vote on it this evening. That's in our Google Drive. Has anybody reviewed these? So we have I believe three objectives.
Yeah, I thought we did vote on these.
I thought we did too, so.
I thought you added it to the agenda because I believe Miss Adams had requested it be put on the agenda last week.
Oh, I had asked when we were going to start putting like the specific topics on and addressing them, so like when we're going to talk about Old Primary, what our goals are, what we can do, if we.
Oh, okay. When we're going to work on the goals.
Yeah, not to talk about them, but for example, like if we're going to do something with Old Primary because it's goal year 2, what is it we need to do? We need to put them specifically as topics on the agenda and set together some action that we could take on Old Primary.
So I will work with the town manager on when we can fit these in. Obviously, objective number 1 is probably the most important. 2 is, well, they're all important, otherwise it would be goals. But as far as priorities, number 2 we can get in most any time, but objective 1 seems to be the one we need to come to a conclusion on, and it's probably going to be headed toward annual town meeting, so we should have meetings along the way, because it is going to require funding for next year if we decide to do something that requires action. So. And
all the communication that we'd need to do with Historical Commission and APDC, the things that we talk about, just so we get those balls rolling.
Yep. Okay. All right. I will work with the town manager on when we can start on those, and I will make sure it's my objective, and everybody can keep me honest. If you don't see one on for a while, please feel free to ping me and say, hey, we haven't seen one for a while. So
thank you.
Minutes. I don't think we have any minutes for this week to approve. Warrants, none from last week. I did get an email that there are some for this week, so tomorrow or Thursday. Action items, any action items from the board? No. Committee reports. I have one. We had our first meeting of the Capital Planning Committee last Wednesday. Mr. McQuaid is the only returning guest star from this show, and everybody else is a new cast. So we are all learning the ropes. The most important thing is that we're going to be looking at, as the town manager just put out in the special town meeting, they'll be looking to take up articles that got deferred from the annual to see if we want to take them up on the special. That's number 1. And number 2 is getting ready. And Madam Town Manager, you were going to submit something to all of us regarding the existing spreadsheet of all the items that came in last year, so that our next meeting, which is next Tuesday at 5:30, we can decide whether we want to go ahead and put out the forms to the departments to start their submittals for FY 21 budget. Any other committee reports?
Yes.
Mr. Jeffries?
So we had a meeting of the TCP Design Committee last week. I was not able to attend. However, I did have the opportunity to review the meeting, and I just want to give just a couple of brief updates. So the committee is continuing to look at, they're a little further in the process of identifying more program space for the potential use at the TCP building. I know that there needs to be additional feedback from town offices, from the town manager, from PAC on how that better meets their needs. There were some additional changes that were made after the meeting to kind of like the rough plan. But the key point here is that the committee is really interested in learning more from members of the community about their different needs for space. As the TCP design is coming together, a critical part of this is to ensure that there's community space to better meet the needs of all of us in the community. So if you're part of a nonprofit organization and you're at home hearing this, I again encourage you to join us at our next meeting, which I believe, let me just pull it up. It's next Monday and of course, at 6 p.m. So that will also be posted on the town website so that we can get access to the Zoom information. But again, the process is ongoing, and I hope to have more information for the board after that meeting.
Is there a goal for special annual town meeting? Is that the goal for the TCP Design Committee?
It is the current working goal is to be able to present something. Really has to come to this board. So they're going to report back to the select board on their recommendations and advice for this board to then propose an article.
Okay, thank you. Any other committee reports? Okay, revision of toll booth policy. So we talked about amending it. It is now in the Google Drive with basically a few things in it that we spoke about. So the first thing is Board of Selectmen is changed to Select Board. That is a clerical change, no substantive change. Then we added a number 10 criteria, is that no charitable organization or nonprofit group may conduct more than 2 toll booths annually. We all agreed on that. And then we enumerated 2 reasons for denial. Is 1, the applicant failed to follow safety guidelines in the last 12 months. And 2, the applicant has reached the maximum allowed toll booths for the year. So those were 2 distinct reasons for denial. Because we've added the 2 items for denial, the next sentence is really superfluous and really covered. So that next sentence is crossed out. And so those were the total changes that kind of incorporated our discussion about this policy. Are there any questions, comments?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Jeffries.
Have there been many organizations who've requested more than 2 toll booths in a year?
No, because it was informally told to people that we wouldn't do it. So we're just basically formalizing what was already an understood policy, at least for the last 5 to 6 years, I think.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd entertain a motion regarding this amended toll booth policy.
I make a motion that we accept it. As
Do I have a
written.
second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye from me. Excellent. Number 2 in old business, policy on approval process for signage on town property. There is a draft sign policy that the town manager has provided as a starting point. It's fairly short, so if you haven't read it, we can read it now. Discuss it. It is not my intent that we'll vote on this, but at least maybe start a discussion about this. And then as everybody digests it more, now that we have something concrete to use as a foundation, we can come back to it. Mr. Jeffries.
What precipitated this draft policy?
Oh, that's right. So I'm assuming you didn't review last week's meeting. Okay.
I've not reviewed all of last week's meeting yet.
Yeah. So last week this was brought up because of signage that goes on town-owned property, not right of way, like not at the edge of your property that the town has the right of way. We're talking about actually town-owned property, like the town common or the Ritter building, and what kind of signage can go on these properties, and what would be the mechanism to get approval for putting such signs on those properties. So we don't have an established policy for, again, who do you go to and what are the criteria of which we will approve or deny such requests. And we figured it was important to have one. That's what precipitated this.
Thank you.
So I don't know if anybody wants to start, what the pleasure of the board is. Do you want a week to digest this? Do you want to discuss about this now, point by point? I would leave it up to the board to discuss how they want to proceed with this item.
I personally would like a week to digest it, Tom. I mean, I've read through it. It's pretty straightforward, but I just want to let it settle for a week before we move forward on it.
Is there any objection to that we put this now that we have it and we come prepared to talk about this and try to hammer this out next week? Because again, it's not going to be difficult and there's not a whole lot of nuances with this, I think.
Yeah, none from me, Tom. I agree with Todd.
Okay. All right. So we'll table that for next week, Madam Town Manager. Just make sure that makes it to next week's agenda. Town Manager reports and COVID-19 update.
Well, I'll start with the COVID-19 update because it's really short. The only update I have are the updated figures from the Board of Health. There are now 79 confirmed cases in Lunenburg, whereas last week it was 77. In regards to my town manager report, there are only 4 vacancies now out of all our previous vacancies on different committees. One vacancy came up this week. A member of the TCP Building Design Committee resigned, and that was a member at large position, Mr. Mike Mackin. So there's now that vacancy that is currently being advertised for the requisite number of days. So that will come up on the earliest it will come up on is the October 5th Selectmen's Meeting. The other vacancies include the Architectural Preservation District Commission, 1 vacancy, Historical Commission, 1 vacancy, and the Zoning Board of Appeals, there's 1 associate vacancies.
If I can interrupt for a moment, I think this is the lowest we've ever seen these vacancies. So I'd like to put a town-wide push to try. This is the fundraiser of get the existing vacancies off the town manager report push. So if you're out there and you are interested in helping the town in any of these 4 things, please submit a talent bank form. We have never, I feel like the Jerry Lewis telethon, we have never been so close to our goal. So we have 4 vacancies.
Yes.
Thank you.
And those forms can be found on our website and completed and sent to the Board of Selectmen's office. An update about parking at Town Hall. We were informed today by the neighboring property owner who owns the village that we can no longer use the parking lot behind the Town Hall. as it's interfering with the parking with our tenants. So approximately half of our staff at Town Hall uses those spaces to park. So they have been advised to use the teen center lot for now. And I reached out to the Boys and Girls director to let her know as well that we would be using those spaces for now. And we're going to be in communication about how we can work that out and where the best place we can direct people to employees to park. We try to keep the parking spaces out front on the street available for people coming to Town Hall. Update on Mass 925 Mass Ave. The consultant that was hired by Montechusett Regional Planning Commission through the Brownfields Grant has provided a summary of their findings from the Phase 2 environmental site assessment. And their findings include the following. Their hazardous building materials were identified, non-friable asbestos materials, which include sealants, floor tile, and roofing, lead-based paint on several exterior surfaces, light ballasts, and transformers that may contain PCBs, and fluorescent light bulbs that may contain mercury. Underground storage tanks. The ground penetrating radar survey identified 5 underground storage tanks at the site, as well as the septic system. Soil contamination. Lab analysis has identified fractions of EPH, PAHs, PCBs, arsenic, lead, VOCs, and fractions of VPH that exceed Mass DEP standards in the soil samples. 6 of the 8 borings have at least one exceedance of Mass DEP standards. Groundwater contamination. Lab analysis identified total lead above the Mass DEP standards in 1 monitoring well. The consultant will be drafting the written report for review towards the end of September. And as soon as I received this update, I contacted Mass Development about funding for cleanup costs and learned that applications for the Brownfields for redevelopment funding is currently open, but it closes this Friday. This funding is up to $250,000 in remediation costs and is open to advance the redevelopment of sites where the development potential has been identified, but an end user has not yet committed to redeveloping the site. So I spoke with the consultant further today to get some input about applying for this Brownfields redevelopment funding. And I think we should proceed with doing that, given the timeline, and because rolling applications are usually received, but they're for when an end user has been identified. So if we can get ahead of the ball and possibly get funding for these cleanup costs ahead of identifying an end user, then I think that would be beneficial to the town.
Okay.
Update on home rule petitions for liquor license for Jack's Country Variety and the Library Trust Fund home rule petition. These home rule petitions were submitted to Senator Tran's office. They were sponsored by the Senate. I reached out to Senator Tran's office for an update on their status, and the senator relayed that the bill for an additional liquor license for Jack's Country Variety is currently being reviewed by the Committee on Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure. And the bill to authorize the library to invest their library trust funds is being reviewed by the Senate Council to ensure it is properly drafted. I've asked Senator Tran to send us the language that is drafted once Senate Council completes their review. After speaking with Representative Hay on these 2 bills, his legislative aide contacted Senate legal counsel to see if the bills could be moved forward without a significant delay. Today, I was notified by both Senator Tran and Representative Hayes' office that there will be a public hearing to hear testimony on the bill for the additional liquor license for Jack's Country Variety. And this information was forwarded to the board as well as the owner of Jack's Country Variety, so he can either submit written testimony or attend that hearing. Home rule petition for the additional liquor license, which was House Bill 466. If you recall, the board had asked me to look into further why this bill did not move forward. And I reached out to Representative Hayes' office, who sponsored the bill to grant the town an off-premise additional license for the sale of wine and malt beverages. And it was relayed that the Committee on Consumer and Professional Licensure was in favor of bills that identified a specific address, but were not in favor of the town holding what they would be called a pocket license that did not specify an address. And so that's where that stood. I don't know if the board wants to take further action on maybe if we could revitalize that request.
Well, I know from an email we received regarding the Jack's special legislation that on that same docket was a request by Clinton to increase their liquor licenses. I don't know how similar or dissimilar from our own it is, but it certainly did not have an address or a corporation associated with it. So I'm interested in seeing how that goes, because I'm not necessarily convinced that we can't ask for this. If they deny it, they deny it. But it seemed like not taking it up is not the right step. So I'd like to hold on to this, and maybe after the election in November, see if we can resubmit this, and meanwhile track what's going on with that Clinton one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. An update on the town charter. The board had also inquired about at what point the drafted legislation changed from what Attorney Costa submitted. And I spoke with Representative Hay about this as well, and his legislative aide requested the Governor's Council look into whether these changes were made by the Senate Legal Counsel or the House Legal Counsel. And I will update the board once I receive a response.
Okay.
Tri-Town density bonus payment. So I received notification from the Department of Housing and Community Development that we would be receiving a $210,000 density bonus payment per Mass General Law, Chapter 40R, related to smart growth zoning district payments. And this equates to $3,000 for each housing unit of new construction that is created within the smart growth zoning district. These funds come in as general fund receipts, and if not used in the fiscal year, would close out at the end of fiscal 21, which could be later, which would close out to our free cash essentially, and that could be appropriated into what we've previously done into the zoning stabilization fund, if we so chose, but they are a general fund receipt. When Tri-Town was originally constructed, we received a payment of $350,000 under DHCD zoning incentive payment in fiscal 2007, and a density bonus payment of $198,000 in fiscal 10, $99,000 in fiscal 14, and $96,000 in fiscal 16.
Mr. Jeffries, you have a question.
Yes. Going back, I'm sorry, Madam Town Manager, I was had to step away for a second, so I had to mute myself. If we can just go backwards just a little bit, I was noticing when we were talking about Jack's Country Variety and the Library Trust Funds, that, you know, we have two representatives for Lunenburg, and you're referencing Representative Hay. Are you having any positive interaction with Representative Sina?
I have spoken with Representative Sina. This particular one, I spoke with Representative Hay about, as well as Senator Trans, because their office sponsored those bills.
Okay, thank you.
So it's in the Senate side.
Okay.
Let's see. Any questions about the Tri-Town density payment?
No, that's great news that increase.
It is. unexpected.
That's what makes it even greater news.
Yeah. Remote Learning Center at TCP. The school will be opening a remote learning center to provide childcare needs for the Lunenburg public school teachers, and this was also offered to town employees for childcare. This program will be temporarily utilize one classroom at TCP and will be Tuesday through Friday from 7 a.m. till 4 p.m. and will be staffed with a Lunenburg staff member, but not a person that's certified in teaching. Fire and clerical union negotiations. The assistant town manager and I will be recommencing negotiations with the fire and clerical unions beginning tomorrow. And our goal would be to wrap up negotiations as soon as possible in time to take the relevant town meeting votes for the special town meeting. Other meetings, events, and other announcements, I attended a personnel committee meeting today at 5. The Conservation Commission has a meeting tomorrow evening on Zoom at 7 p.m. The school committee has a meeting on Zoom tomorrow night, and that should be September 15th at 6:30 p.m. The Library Board of Trustees has a meeting on Zoom on Thursday, September 17th at 6:45 p.m. The Agricultural Commission, has a meeting on Zoom on Thursday, September 17th at 7 p.m. I'll be attending the TCP Building Design Committee meeting on Zoom on Monday, the 21st at 6 p.m. The Board of Health has a meeting on Zoom on Monday, September 21st at 7 p.m. And I'll be attending the Capital Planning Committee meeting on Tuesday at 5:30. There will be a flu clinic on Wednesday, October 14th from 3 to 6 p.m. at the high school, and persons aged 60 or older will be given priority from 3 to 5 p.m. In another announcement, and this was also shared on the town's Facebook page and sent to the Lunenburg Lunenburg Business Association, that the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission is administering a small business grant assistance program in the greater North Central Massachusetts region, providing up to $1,000 business grants to eligible businesses with up to 20 employees that were adversely impacted by the closure and losses as a result of the economic decline caused by COVID-19. Eligible businesses include food service and production, restaurants, house cleaners, dry cleaners, car repair, garages, barbershops, beauty salons, healthcare, social assistance, and small retail shops. All applicants will be required to demonstrate a direct or indirect financial hardship resulting from COVID-19. And these funds need to be expended no later than September 30th. So anyone interested, I would contact MRPC right away. And the contact is Glenn Eaton, the executive director at geaton@mrpc.org, or calling him at 978-345-7376, extension 310.
Ms. Adams.
All right, thank you. Yes, I had a question for the town manager about the remote learning center. Is that like the early learning center? If people sign up for it, is it something they're paying for? And how do they know about it or utilize that?
So the school, I believe, surveyed all the teachers to see if there was a need for childcare during remote learning. So the children of those teachers could attend, and it would just be Tuesday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m.
And is that something that they need to pay for, or is it how's that being funded?
There will be a charge. I don't think the charge has been determined yet.
Okay.
Great.
Any other questions about town manager report?
Comment
Yes.
regarding the remote learning center, Heather.
Yes.
I know some people that breathed a huge sigh of relief, and would like to give Kate a huge hug. doing that. Thank her.
Yeah, it was great. I think a great way the town and the school, the way we work together to help each other out. So, no,
Very smart.
cool for that.
Very good job. Thank you.
I think it is really nice that the town's able to do that, just with a lot of empathy to all the parents that didn't have access to that opportunity, who also are working with children in the school. So I feel very happy for teachers and town personnel to have that opportunity, but I also feel very sad for other people who I know are struggling. So it's a complex and dynamic situation.
It is. Okay, upcoming meeting. So next week is our last meeting of the month. We will be finalizing the agenda as we always do by Thursday. Public comment from the public. Mr. Passios.
Yes, thank you. Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. Again, I've got two items. First of all, officially, there are two more vacancies. I know there's been at least one talent bank form submitted, but the Parks Department still has legally has two open seats that will not be filled until a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and Parks Commission, hopefully early next month. So if there's anybody out there interested in serving on parks, either for a short term, which would be now through elections in the spring, or would like to get on now, get a feel for it, and then run for re-election in the spring, please fill out a talent bank form. We have a lot of exciting things that we're just diving into now. Town Beach is closed for the season, so we're now looking at fall programming and starting to work on our overall master plan for Marshall Park and the other parks properties. That's it on parks. The other thing is kind of a question. A number of weeks ago, it was announced that the DPW director was going to be retiring without a specific date. Since that time, he has stated publicly in a public meeting that it would be before winter. And I'm wondering if the position has been advertised and we're actively searching for a new DPW director, because it seems to me that if we wait till winter to start searching for a DPW director and don't have one, that's a terrible time of year to be without that position filled. That's kind of a question as to whether that process is moving forward or not.
To the best of my knowledge, that position has not been advertised yet, no.
Okay.
And then it will be.
I'm sorry, Heather, I didn't catch that.
I said it's not advertised as of today, but it will be in the near future.
Okay, thank you. That answers the question. Have a good night, folks.
You too. Any other public comment from the public? Any public comment from the board? The newly minted select board. I have to practice saying that so I don't say it wrong.
What's our new acronym?
SB.
Yeah, oh, you missed that yesterday, last week too. So they were saying that there used to be the BOS, and now it's the SB. I said back then, I'm just glad it's not the SOB. Like, we didn't just reverse it, because that would have been. Although some people might feel that way from time to time. Anyway, SB, whatever that is, stand by. All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I don't know how much discussion we can have about adjourning, so let's go right into voting. Mr. Dwyer,
Aye.
Ms. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Marino,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. Good night, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.
Good night.
Right.